Hello, welcome to my presentation on my Education 201 class, an interesting class. I had previously taken Education 204, so I kind of know what to expect. Got a little bit of a different class and a different experience, but it was all in all a good time. The first thing that I remember is sitting down in class and setting out some goals that I want for the quarter. And a few of them were academic and one of them was social, but I was able to hold up my academic ones, and unfortunately the social one wasn't nearly as so much. So just talking quick about the textbook, I thought that it was really interesting how the book just went through where we were in society and really just how everything blended and how education had grown and molded. But I do have one criticism. I do believe that the book was truly just there in order for you just to know dates and facts and numbers. I have a hard time with a little bit of the here's just the date and here's an amendment that happened, and you just need to be able to memorize this information. I did enjoy, however, that it went over some of the basic theories that we have. The idea that people need specific items before they can start learning, and then once those are achieved, then we are able to give them that learning. And then I really learned where I think I am on the spectrum of where teachers lie in what they believe. Where I'm more of a progressive learner, where I really just want to help the students learn it to or how they want to, instead of just here's a textbook and just read and learn. And it really just made me think because the next assignment was just what an effective teacher to me was, and it's really interesting how teachers can truly be ineffective just by just spouting these facts and trying to get you to know this information when all they need to do is just sit down with you. Some of the best teachers I've had just sat down and talked and let us figure it out on our own and let us experiment and let us learn. Compared to some of the worst who just give us the information, expect us to memorize it, and just spit it out on a test, and then I typically don't do too good in those classes. So speaking of discussion, one of my favorite points was where we just were able to talk about things that we learned, and where we were able to go onto the computer and go over important things that are really important or that are really good for teachers to know. One of those, I believe, is the full inclusion. So a lot of these rooms and buildings that are important for our students to bring in the students who have the same ability to learn but might just take a little bit or just might need a different way to learn, but still be successful. And one of these that was important to me is it really just was interesting because it talked about how we need to be able to help these students. And I have some deaf friends who, without the full inclusion, wouldn't have gotten the same education that they deserve. And we had some assignments where we had looked over the uh, some amendments that had happened that were just really important to me, and one of those was the amendment that really just made it so that all students, even low income, were able to get good education. And the other was the Brown versus Board, where students were able to finally be blended in together and finally be able to actually learn. And it's important to not focus on what we look like or who is rich or who's poor, but really just focus on just giving a good education. One of the assignments that I enjoyed was where we had to look into the information of a school. I chose South Kitsap High School, which is where my fiance and her family all have gone to school or are currently going to school, which is over on the other side of the state. Um, and so I think that it was an interesting assignment because I was able to look at the demographics of the student population and know more about the culture of the school and learn more about the school than just what they had told in me about the school. And I learned a lot of information from this. I was able to pick up more than just what I had known. One of the more interesting things that I had known before was just that a school like this was unable to get funding to build a new school, although it was the largest in the state, and that's really hard on the students, so that it is impacting their learning. Um, and so, moving on, one of the other assignments that I figured was interesting was our book review. And I had chosen The Teacher Wars by Donna Goldstein, which really goes over through what happened in a lot of the evolution of teaching and education. And one of the big points on it is that a lot of teachers that were teaching, especially during the Reformation of education, really did a good job of trying to teach specifically just for people to be able to pass standardized testing. And then the other thing that she touched on was the idea of tenured. Um, and a lot of people who would get these tenures but would not be very good teachers and would really just focus on, um, now that they're done, just being done and not really being able to give a good quality education. And so, yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I really think that it's just important for everyone to know that, as long as you are trying hard as a teacher and you're just not giving up, that you will be successful and that you will impact people's lives. Thank you.